right after being contacted by the Cacao Spirit, I went to talk to the Indigenous shamans because I thought, oh, well, they know. And none of them knew anything about cacao. It doesn't grow where I live. It's a rainforest plant, and we're too high, and we have a long dry season. And they didn't know anything. And so I started learning from the Cacao Spirit. And since then, I've found a few shamans in Guatemala that use cacao. They have their own way to do it, and elsewhere in Central America. And there are now shamans here at the lake that use cacao because they work with the gringos, and the gringos expect it because there's now so much cacao here. But the shamans here at the lake didn't use cacao for over 10 years after I started using it with the local people. And I'm going, well, Cacao Spirit, are you going to teach me Mayan shamanism? And no. I learned how to work with what I already knew with Western peoples in a way to work with Western peoples. What I do has nothing to do with indigenous practices.
But there definitely were indigenous practices, and I know on your blog you talk about them a little bit.
Yes.
It sounds like they were forgotten.
From southern Mexico to the Amazon, where cacao grows, there are practices in all kinds of different cultures. A lot of it's been lost. A lot of it's been recovered. But that's not what I do.
Yeah.
I kind of want to quote something that you wrote on your website. So it says, an indigenous myth tells us that whenever the balance between humans and nature becomes threatened, cacao comes from the rainforest to open people's hearts and return the planet to harmony. I loved reading this, and it seemed to make a lot of sense with my experience of cacao on your porch and with what you produce. And I feel like there's just a question, and I don't know if you can answer it, but do you have an idea of why the Cacao Spirit chose you?
Well, I had the background in what's called inner processing, shadow work, emotional release work, where you release the pain body to make room for the light body. I had that background. I had the intuitive abilities to work with people. And I wasn't involved with another medicine plant. I used them, but I wasn't presently immersed in that culture. So I was available. And my understanding basically is that it was prearranged. And I just met the intersection in time and place. I ended up in Guatemala. And right over the mountains from me, if you look at a map of the cacao growing areas in Central America from the 1700s, the biggest area is on the other side of the mountains from here. The single place in all of the Central Americas that the Toltecs, the Olmecs, the Mayans, and the Aztecs killed each other the most over to own the cacao that grew there is right over the mountains from here, from about this area north to the Mexican border. So it's the place that the Indigenous and the Spanish said produces the highest quality cacao. I didn't know any of that then. It's just where I was.
And there's an interesting definition that you've shared with us before on your porch about what, and I can't remember the native word for chocolate is. I'm going to butcher it if I try to pronounce it. But you defined it as it translating to heart blood.
Yes. Well, the Indigenous Nahuatl or Aztec word for drinking chocolate is chocolatl, which eventually became chocolate in France, I believe. It is translated by anthropologists as blood. I've got the book in the house from the anthropologist who is the world's cacao expert. And frankly, according to the Cacao Spirit, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Indigenous languages are poetic. Everything is poetry. that's a little difficult for those of us in Western world to understand. But the literal translation, as I understand it, of chocolatl is heart blood. And we see this in the original name that Linnaeus, the Swiss who developed botanical nomenclature, gave chocolate. Theobroma cacao, food of the gods. Theo for God and broma for food. This is a heart-opening plant. What is, and it's called heart blood. What is the blood that flows through the heart poetically?
Love.
Love. What is poetically the food of the gods?
Yeah, love.
Love. Now, I rediscovered that, stuck it on the website. Obviously, Linnaeus must have understood it in some way, or he never would have called it the food of the gods. So that understanding, in our cultures, we share chocolate on Valentine's Day. In the local indigenous cultures, when people get married, they exchange cacao beans. It's understood at that subconscious level that cacao has something vibrationally to do with the heart or with love. So basically, I figured that out. It had just been lost for 500 years. I've been told by indigenous cacao shamans that I'm the first Westerner in 500 years to understand what cacao is about. And okay. Oh dear. Now I got to do a website, and that's not really my forte, but I did. And I've been sharing it ever since.